Alright everybody, so before you go cleaning your bearing out of your fidget spinner with WD-40, a couple things you should know. Now this right here, this is a bearing. I'll tell you about this bearing in just a minute, but you can see it's not spinning very freely, almost acts like it's locked up a little bit. So what happens if I use WD-40 on this bearing? Because a lot of people are talking about WD-40 being a good thing to lubricate your bearings with. Now, WD-40 is not a lubricant. That's what a lot of people are getting confused here. At first, it seems to be, but it's not. In the long run, you'll notice that. You know what? I'll just go ahead and tell you about this bearing right here. This bearing right here was real gunked up. Actually had a little bit of rust on it too. Don't know how well you can see that. So I used WD-40 to clean it last weekend. So exactly 7 days ago. And at first, it spun great. You know, like I'm about to show you again. But this is what happens after 1 week. Notice it's not spinning freely anymore. Remember, a good bearing on a fidget spinner spins for a very long time, and your better fidget spinners, you're going to get more than 10 seconds out of that spin. So we're going to clean this bearing again with WD-40 real quick, and then I'll tell you the step that a lot of people are missing. WD-40 is good for removing any water that's trapped in there, and it's not going to do so much of a good job as removing the gunk. You're going to have to manually remove that. But in itself, it's going to help get rid of any rust and any gunk that's in there. So let's give it a little. Okay. So now that thing's loaded with WD-40. It's not making as much noise as it was before. The spin isn't quite long, but it's spinning faster and a little freer. And if I let that WD-40 sit on there for a little bit, maybe even apply another coat, it'll work even better. But here's the thing about the WD-40. Here's the step that everybody's missing. WD-40 itself, if left on your bearing, when you're cleaning the bearing out of your fidget spinner, the WD-40 itself will leave a gunk when it dries. So the WD-40 is great for helping break your bearing free, get it moving again, but you're going to need to take the WD-40 off of the bearing. Otherwise, it's going to gunk up. Damn, cat, what was that all about? Yeah, so we're getting a little better with it. So it's moving freely now, but you give it a few days, and the gunk on the WD-40 as it dries, or not the gunk on the WD-40, but as the WD-40 dries, it's going to start gunking up your bearing again. And then on top of that, you now have a product on here that's going to attract dust and clothing fibers from when your fidget spinner's in your pocket, and it's gonna lock up even faster than before. So the WD-40, once you've cleaned it with WD-40, like I said, I'm gonna let that sit for a day or two, but after this point you need to use something like alcohol, and this is only 50%. That's not what you want to use. I just realized that I need to go back out and go get some more. But you want to get just, like 90% maybe, I think is what it is, rubbing alcohol. And that's what's going to clean your bearing real good. And you don't want to use, a lot of people are saying use a Q-tip to clean in there. but the Q-tip's got fibers in itself, and as you're rubbing in there real hard, you're going to get some of that Q-tip fiber stuck up in your bearings. So that's not good either. The ultimate thing here is that you need to keep your bearing dry. Don't use lubricant at all, you know, on your bearings, because you're just going to attract dirt. You're going to attract gunk. You know, the lubricant itself is going to start gunking up as it gets dirty, and that's not what you want. You want this to be as dry as it can be. That is why you would use rubbing alcohol on it. When you use rubbing alcohol on it, rubbing alcohol itself dries and just kind of evaporates, you know, and that's what you're looking for. If you've ever used rubbing alcohol to clean your computer keyboard, you can just sit there and just watch it as it does its job. As you know, after you've cleaned, it just evaporates and disappears. That's what you want. You want your bearing dry in these. The people that are combating that belief, it seems to be people who are used to like roller skating and skateboarding. And, you know, in those scenarios, it's fine to use lubricant because your skateboard and your rollerblades are on quite a load. You know, you're standing on them. So, yeah, it's necessary to keep those lubricated. This right here is not carrying any weight or any load. You know, you need your bearings just to be as freed up as they can be. And the only way they're going to be like that is if they're dry. So, don't gunk your bearings up with lubricant and your fidget spinners. I would tell you, don't even use like WD-40 or any type of lubricant or any product if you're getting a good spin. If you're trying to get a faster spin, lubricating your bearing is not the way to go. Instead, you want it to be as clean as it can be, using rubbing alcohol to clean it, let it dry. And you know, if you're not getting those 7 and 8 minute spins that you're looking for, then you just need to get another fidget spinner. You know, that's all there is to it. Every single fidget spinner is not made equally. You know, as they go through the process, you know, these manufacturing companies are just firing out crap loads of these things a day. They don't have time to go through and make sure every single individual bearing is functioning as it's supposed to. So if you get your hands on one that's just not giving you the spin that you want, yeah, you can drop a couple of beads of lubricant in there and you might get a faster spin for, you know, maybe a day. But you've just mapped out the death of your fidget spinner by doing that. So don't use lubricants on your fidget spinner. Like I said, this is mainly just a worst case scenario. If you just want an extra day or two or a week out of your fidget spinner, then you can do something like this whole WD-40 process and finish it off with rubbing alcohol. That is the key though. If you're doing WD-40, you've got to clean that WD-40 out of your bearing. So yeah, in a nutshell, don't use lubricants, don't use WD-40, you know, don't use anything aside from just rubbing alcohol to clean your bearing, because your bearing needs to stay dry, and that is going to give you the best spins that it's going to give you and still last a long time. Alright, I'm out.